Genesis was completed by Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in 1513 BCE. Born in 1593 BCE, Moses was a prophet, leader, judge, historian, and mediator. He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, called the Pentateuch, as well as Job, Psalm 90, and possibly Psalm 91. The name Genesis means origin or birth. The book explains the origin of the universe and how God prepared the earth for people to live on it. The account also describes the origin of the Israelites and their growth in Egypt until the death of Joseph in 1657 BCE. Genesis has 50 chapters. Chapters 1 and 2 outline how God, in 6 periods called days, prepared the earth for humans and then created the first man and woman, Adam and Eve. They were to fill the earth and subdue it, and they had the prospect of everlasting life. In chapter 3, Eve is tempted by a serpent to disobey God. Adam joins her in disobedience, bringing sin and death into the human family. In chapter 6, wicked angels materialize and take women as wives, producing hybrid offspring called Nephilim. Wickedness abounds, and God decides to put an end to all flesh by means of a great flood. Noah, however, has found favor with God, who tells him to build an ark to save his family and the various kinds of animals. In chapters 10 and 11, we read that after the flood, people start to build a city with a great tower, thus defying God's purpose for humans to fill the earth. But God confuses their language, scattering them. Chapters 11 to 25 focus on Abraham, a man of faith. In chapter 12, Jehovah tells Abraham, then called Abram, to enter the land where he would one day become a great nation, and the means by which all peoples will be blessed. In chapter 15, Jehovah tells Abram to look up and count the stars if he can. So your offspring will become, God says. Did you know? Genesis sets the theme for the entire Bible. The vindication of Jehovah's right to rule and the fulfillment of his purpose for the earth and mankind by means of his kingdom in the hands of a future offspring. This offspring and his work were first foretold at Genesis 3:15. The book of Revelation shows how that offspring crushes the original serpent, Satan, and brings the promised blessings to all obedient mankind. In chapter 19, God destroys Sodom, Gomorrah, and neighboring cities because of their gross sexual immorality. In chapter 22, Jehovah tells Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. But when Abraham attempts to do so, Jehovah stops him and reaffirms his earlier promises concerning Abraham's future offspring. Chapters 24 to 50 focus largely on Isaac, his twin sons Jacob and Esau, and Jacob's son Joseph. Isaac blesses Jacob, who then goes to distant Padan Aram. There, by means of Leah, Rachel, and their 2 maidservants, Jacob fathers many children, including 11 sons. Jacob then returns to Canaan, where God changes his name to Israel, and where Rachel gives birth to Jacob's 12th son. Chapters 37 to 41 tell how Jacob's 17-year-old son Joseph is sold by his brothers and becomes a slave to Potiphar, a court official of Pharaoh. Potiphar's wife later tries to seduce Joseph, but fails. She accuses him of sexual assault, and he is imprisoned. When Joseph is 30 years old and still a prisoner, he interprets Pharaoh's dreams with the help of God's Spirit. As a result, Joseph is set free and appointed Prime Minister of Egypt. In chapters 42 to 47, Joseph is reunited with his family, who settle in Egypt as alien residents. Chapter 49 contains Jacob's deathbed prophecy about his sons. Judah's family line will produce the promised offspring, that is, Shiloh, the one to whom the obedience of the peoples will belong. As you read the book of Genesis, note how it explains the root cause of mankind's suffering. See how and why the patriarchs gained God's favor and blessing. And read how Jehovah's promises to those men of faith point forward to Jesus Christ, the King of God's kingdom.